Hello everyone, I am filming this video from my hotel, the Courtyard by Marriott Anaheim theme park entrance right across the street from Disneyland during my trip to Southern California in January of 2022. And in this video, I want to share with you 4 things that pleasantly surprised me about visiting Southern California and 1 thing that was a little bit hard to see or experience while we were here. Okay, I've been to Southern California before, so have my kids. They were pretty young and don't really remember. I've been here multiple times, but it has been 10 years since the last time I was in the Los Angeles area or California at all. We spent 4 days doing various things around Los Angeles, and then we're spending another 6 days here in Anaheim and going to Disneyland. The first thing that has pleasantly surprised me about visiting California is how seriously they are about environmental protection. And I already knew this. There's a lot of laws in place in California to at least help protect the environment, but it really struck me how much more they're doing than pretty much any other state I visited in recent years. We've been to 16, 17 states now, just during the pandemic alone, so in the last 2 years, and I haven't seen any other states doing anything at all like what California's been doing. 3 things that I noticed. 4 things that I noticed regarding the environment. One was when we were having lunch yesterday at Cafe Orleans in Disneyland. Our server brought us our drinks, but she didn't bring us any straws, but we noticed that other people had straws. So the next time she came near our table, I stopped her and I said, "Excuse me, could we get some straws?" Now, every straw we've gotten here in California has been a paper straw. And they're good paper straws. I mean, we are totally happy with using paper straws. We like paper straws and think that's a really good move for states, countries, whatever, to make that. There's really no reason anybody should be using plastic straws anymore, especially when there's good quality paper straws available. Plastic straws are a bane on the environment and should be outlawed, in my opinion. You have good options with paper straws or reusable straws. Although I realize it's not the handiest for everybody to have to carry around their own reusable straws and clean them and stuff. But she gave us the straws, and when she gave them to us, she explained to us that straws are only available by request, and that's California state law. So they only give people straws if you ask for them. And even then, they're paper straws. So that was a big thing that I noticed. Another thing I noticed here at Disneyland, when I was at Rancho del Zocalo last night getting my dinner right before they closed, so it wasn't very busy. There was hardly any people there. But at the moment that I went to get my drink, they had a soda fountain and you served yourself. There were no plastic lids for the cups. Now, I hesitated for a minute because part of me was thinking, I wonder if this is like Animal Kingdom at Walt Disney World in Florida, and they just don't have lids or straws because it protects the animals. But I was thinking, why would they do that here? The people that were next to me, there was a couple that was filling up their drinks like at the next soda fountain over from me, were commenting, "I don't see any lids, where are the lids?" And I just was like, okay, there's no lids. And I just took my drink and I made sure to hold on to it as I was carrying my tray up to the cash register. Well, then at the cash register, the woman who rang me up gave me the lid for my drink. So I thought that was a really smart thing to do. That way they're not wasting lids, they're not getting dropped on the ground. People aren't, taking the wrong size and then they end up having to throw them away. They're making sure that you're actually buying a drink that you need a lid for. So I thought that was a really good way to do it. The only thing I would improve on that process is they should have had a sign somewhere near the soda fountain so that people knew that that's what was going to happen. You will be given a lid when you pay for your food or whatever. So that people knew they were going to get a lid, but it was only when you checked out. But otherwise, I thought that was a really good idea. I've never seen that before, to only have the cashier give you the lids just for your specific drink that you buy. Third thing that I've noticed about caring for the environment in California is their availability of trash and recycling receptacles everywhere. There just seems to be a lot more trash cans in general all around, so you don't have to go very far. So I'm not really seeing much litter, with one exception, which I'll come to near the end of the video. A lot of times where there's a trash can, there's also a recycling receptacle right next to it. So I don't know how the recycling program works in California. I've had to do a lot of research and bug a lot of people in Wisconsin to get any information about what happens to my recycling that's taken from my house at home. But they obviously are making it easier for people, even when you're just walking about and you're out doing things and not at your home, to be able to recycle bottles and cans, for example. Most of the recycling containers that I've seen out in public places do just say bottles and cans. So it's not like they're expecting you to figure out, like, with paper and things like that, am I supposed to be putting this in there? Because the one thing we know about recycling is if you put something in there that can't be recycled, it messes the whole thing up. And so when in doubt, you really should just throw it away, because it could really mess up the recycling process. But if they just say bottles and cans, well, that's simple. Anybody can tell this is a bottle and a can, and mostly that's going to be drink containers. So I just thought that was really nice that seemed to be a lot easier to be able to recycle certain things here. And then the fourth thing about the environment I've noticed here in California is the cars. Okay, and this is a big one. I mean, California has had very high emission standards for a long, long time. And we've talked about, the issues with pollution and smog and things like that. And Ben was asking me about it because his eyes have been bothering him since we've been here. I don't really see any visible smog, and I'm not noticing any pollution. But we figured out that we finally thought to check the pollen count. Things are growing here in Southern California in January. There's flowers and trees with leaves on them and things like that. And Ben is very allergic to tree and grass pollen. And we checked the pollen forecast and it was medium high. So that makes sense. So we bought some eye drops last night down at the hotel to give him some relief for his eyes, because we don't have his prescription eye drops with him. That's something to think about, by the way. When you travel to other places away from where you live, and you live in a place like us where it's winter in the winter and everything's frozen and dead, if you're going someplace where things are still growing, don't forget about your allergies if you have allergies. Just a little tip for you. But with the cars, they have such high emission standards in California anyway for cars. Ben said, I think, my son Andrew's car, which he's only had for a few years, has this. But I've never ridden in his car with him, so I've never experienced before. It threw me off when I first got our rental car. It was a Volkswagen something. A white, what was it called? Something like that. Well, it actually shuts itself off when you're stopped. You don't even have to be in park. Just having my foot on the brake, the car shuts itself off. So every time that we're at a stop sign or a stoplight or just stopped in traffic for a little bit, the car actually turns its own engine off and then restarts itself again when we start to move. And I have heard other cars around me, like when we're stopped at a light or something, they're also doing it. So there's a whole bunch of cars that are turning themselves off so they're not, wasting energy and putting fossil fuels into the atmosphere. The one disadvantage of this for me personally is that thing with my ankle and how hard it is for me to hold the brake. I've been trying to shift over to my left foot to hold the brake with my left foot, but the brake pedal in this rental car that we had is much narrower than the brake pedal in my car at home. And so it was hard for me to switch feet to do that. And in the process of doing that, oftentimes the car thought I was going to move. And so it would turn itself back on, even though I was still going to be sitting there for a while. So I felt kind of bad about that because that was just on me. That wasn't the car's fault. But I thought that was something really interesting. And the other thing that Ben definitely has noticed is so many more electric cars here. Teslas everywhere, and other kinds of electric cars too. What kind? Yeah, everything. Just a lot of electric vehicles, and electric vehicle charging stations are very easy to find. They're all over the place. And I mean, it's very difficult to find electric charging stations in Wisconsin, even in the Twin Cities. And so there's obviously a lot more electric vehicles here, and I think that's great. So the environment, pleasant surprise here in California. Nice to see a lot of things we were already aware of, but it's just interesting to see it in action. Okay, second thing that pleasantly surprised us about our time here in Southern California is how nice everyone is. And maybe it's just the places that we're particularly going to, but I mean, everybody from the Lyft driver to the taxi cab driver that I had, to the people at the rental car place, to everything we go to, every restaurant, every place, even people in line with us offering, hey, do you want me to take your picture for you? I mean, just everywhere we go, everywhere we've been on this trip, everybody is extremely friendly and extremely polite and very, very, very nice. I mean, I just don't sense any kind of negativity or attitude or rudeness or anything off anyone. Everybody is so nice here. And I don't know if that's just good luck on our part or what, but it's something we've definitely really noticed. Everyone is so polite and so respectful and so pleasant and just really, really nice. And so that's been a very pleasant surprise because I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I don't know that I was expecting the opposite, but it's just been really nice. Okay, third pleasant surprise about our visit to Southern California is how much I have not minded driving. I was a little bit nervous, because I'm going to be driving in Los Angeles. The traffic can be really bad on the freeways, and that's true. But I felt totally relaxed and confident and comfortable driving. And I will put that to a few things. One is the drivers here were noticeably better, safer, more respectful drivers than, say, when we went on our trip in June of 2021 to Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, where they were like speeding and weaving through traffic and slamming on the brakes right in the back of you right when they got. Nobody's tailgating here. People aren't, once in a while you see a motorcycle weaving through traffic, but people aren't driving like maniacs. People use their turn signal. They're giving each other plenty of space. Even when there is heavy traffic, people are giving themselves nice buffers. One thing I kind of wondered is, Ben has also noticed, because he's into cars, there are a lot of very nice, expensive cars in Los Angeles. I mean, even our rental car was a pretty nice, fancy car. There's a lot of Porsches and Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces and things like that. And so I don't know if maybe people, and because of those high emission standards and those features on the cars, people might have a lot of, not everyone obviously, but people might have a lot of newer, more expensive cars here and they just want to be more careful with them. I don't know. That's just a guess. It is noticeable how much nicer the cars are here, but I was explaining to the kids that part of that is because of the weather and the California. They don't have to deal with snow, ice, sand, and salt on their roads that corrode your cars like we do in Wisconsin and make cars age prematurely. They don't have that problem here. A 10-year-old car here is going to look way nicer than a 5-year-old car in Wisconsin. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but just I did not mind the driving. There was only one time that we were in what I would consider real heavy traffic, like kind of stop and go traffic. And it was just for like maybe a 15-20 minute stretch when we were driving from down south of LAX to Hollywood. And we went right through like downtown Los Angeles but on the freeway. It got real slow and going there for a little while, but it still wasn't that bad. I didn't feel like tense, stressed out. I didn't feel like anybody was going to crash into me. So there's a lot of cars here. I mean, when we were driving from the Getty Center down here to Anaheim a few nights ago, there were a lot of cars. I mean, I was on a 12-lane freeway and there's a lot of cars and it's lights as far as you can see, but it was freely flowing, moving steadily. Nobody's slamming on their brakes, nothing like that. And it was night. It can be a little bit hard on your eyes to see all those lights, but I wasn't nervous or scared or anxious or anything. So I've been pleasantly surprised by how much I did not mind driving in Los Angeles. Okay, and then the fourth thing that was a pleasant surprise was how safe we feel here. This is a big one, and this goes to the pandemic. It is night and day. It's literally like being on a different planet. It's so dramatically different in Southern California and Los Angeles, probably especially in Los Angeles County where they have really strict protocols and restrictions right now for the pandemic. I can't even tell you how much different it is here. But in addition to the rules and the laws that they have in place to protect people, the other things that contributed to that feeling of safety, number one is it just feels so much more spacious. Obviously, California is big. There's lots of room. There's lots of space. And so we just don't ever feel like, except for when we're in a crowd in Disneyland, out and about, we never felt like we were in a, we didn't feel like people were all around us and too close and things like that. Even, we went to the beach and there's tons of space. And so it just feels more spacious and open and like you don't worry about the virus because nobody's really close to you. The second thing that contributes to that is, oh my gosh, did I make the right decision when it comes to dining? First of all, I wouldn't want to be in Florida right now because they're having a terrible time with weather because of Winter Storm Izzy. But the dining and the ability to eat outside is so easy here. Almost anywhere you go, you have the option to eat outside. We haven't had an issue with that at all. It feels so much better and safer to be able to eat comfortably and not have to worry that you have your mask off because you're outside. And like everywhere, there's places to eat outside, and that's because of the weather. And so it's really been nice to feel safe eating because we can eat outside. And then the other thing is just how big a difference it is with people with wearing masks here. It's very obvious here that just everybody wears masks. And not the tourists. Like, it's a little different here at Disneyland than it was in other parts of Los Angeles. But like in LA County, everywhere, everybody just naturally is wearing their masks. Nobody's making a fuss about it. Nobody's complaining. Everybody from elderly people down to little kids has their mask on properly. It was so unusual and rare to see someone in LA County that didn't have their mask on properly, that when you did, I mean, I can probably count on one hand how many times in 4 days I saw somebody with their mask below their nose, that it actually stuck out at you. This was very similar to what I talked about when we went to Chicago in March of 2020. And I really wonder if this is, part of this could be a blue state thing. Part of this could also be a big city thing. Big cities, because of how many people they have in such close proximity, are just much more serious about masking and mask mandates and keeping their people safe, because the virus could spread so easily in a big city, I think. But it also might be a blue state thing. But I mean, it was just so natural for everybody to have their mask on, and nobody like bats an eye. Nobody's complaining about it. Nobody's thinking anything of it. Nobody's not wearing them. Everybody has them on, and everybody has them on properly. And it's just like, this is what we do. The other thing that was very noticeable is the difference in the signage. At home, you might, when you go into a business, see a sign on the door that says, please wear your mask, or please consider wearing a mask to keep us safe, or something like that. Like, you know, if you feel like it, would you maybe, not spread the virus around? I mean, that's kind of what it is there. But here, the signs are like, you may not enter this building if you don't have a mask on your face, okay? You're not coming in here if you don't have a mask on. Put your mask on. I mean, it's really blunt, and it's everywhere. The signs are everywhere, and there's no way that you could miss it, okay? There's nobody like getting to the, I mean, I've seen this so many times in Wisconsin, where somebody comes up to a business and they see that they have a sign on the door, and they're like, oh, and then they got to fumble around for their mask or run back to their car and get it. No. That's not happening here in Southern California. People have the mask on all the time anyway, even when they're walking around outside. And so when they get to the business, it's not an issue if somebody has to tell them, hey, put a mask on. They've already got it on. Okay, and then something I really liked was several places, I've never heard this in Wisconsin. People calling people out if they don't have their mask on properly. I can think of 3 examples right now. When we were on the Warner Brothers studio tour, on our tram, there was another family, it's like older parents and their like adult son, from Minnesota. Okay, so from where we are from. She had on a cloth mask. Okay, I noticed that right away, the mom. At one point when we were driving in the tram on our tour, our young tour guide, Allie, announced over the speaker thing with her mic, ma'am, you need to cover your nose with your mask because it must have fallen down under her nose. And she called her out on it. And I thought that was awesome. Okay. At Disneyland just yesterday, we've only been there one day so far, twice. Within 30 minutes, we were getting on the Pooh ride. And while we were like just getting into our honeycomb vehicle, one of the ride attendants kind of chastised a couple of people in line, because these would be tourists that could be from other places. You guys need to have your masks on now because they didn't have them on, and you have to have them on the ride. They weren't even on the ride yet. They were still waiting at the, in the queue, but the ride attendant's like, put your masks on now, and was very firm about it. And then a little while later, we were in the Pooh's Corner gift shop, and a man did not have a mask on and he was not visibly carrying it. And the woman behind the counter, like very firmly said, "Sir, do you have a mask? If you don't put a mask on, you can't be in this store." And so she was basically saying, "Get out of my store if you don't put a mask on your face." And so that's something I just don't see where we live at all, is people calling them out like that. And I mean, some of that's on Disney, but some of that was also, or Warner Brothers, but also it's more of a sense I'm getting from the Los Angeles area. So the overall pandemic safety, just a massive difference here. We just feel so much safer here than we do at home, or that we even did even in New England, honestly, at least in the summer when we were there. It's so automatic here. It feels more like what I'm expecting that people experience living in Asia, because people in Asia have had this thing of not transmitting viruses for many, many years and are way ahead of the rest of us. The habit they make out of wearing masks when they go out in public, and also how ahead of the time, I mean, we're ahead of our time. We've been wearing KN95 masks since June of 2021. And just now this month, the CDC is finally telling people, yeah, you probably ought to be wearing KN95 masks. Duh. Okay. So we've already been ahead of the curve, but the people in Asia have been ahead of that and been wearing surgical and medical masks for decades, or whatever, before people here were, before there was ever a pandemic. Hi, it's a couple of days later, and I just remembered what the fourth reason was that I feel safer in California, or at least Los Angeles, much, much safer than we do at home. It's because here in Los Angeles County, at least, they are requiring proof of vaccination to get into almost everything. We had to show proof of vaccination at the Warner Brothers studio tour to get in there. We had to show proof of vaccination at the Getty Center, and we had to show proof of vaccination at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. All three of those places. And if we had wanted to dine inside any restaurant, we would have had to show vaccination, proof of vaccination to get in there. I am glad that I brought the kids' passports, because it definitely worked the best to have each of us just hold our own vaccine card and our passport, because they wanted to see both your ID and your vaccine card. We did notice that a lot of people were showing things on their phones, so they either have some type of health pass that's a code or something that's on their phones, or they had gotten a negative test. You could, in I think most places, get in with a negative test too, but I'm not sure what exactly the rules were with that. So that's another reason that I feel safer here. They're very strict about requiring everybody to be vaccinated to get into indoor venues, restaurants, things like that. Okay, the one thing that has been a little bit troubling to see, which I knew about this too, but it still is hard to see it, and it especially kind of bothered Megan, is the homelessness. There's a lot of homelessness in Southern California around Los Angeles. There's a lot of homelessness here in Anaheim. When you get into central Los Angeles, you really see it like closer to downtown LA and around that area. There's a lot of homeless encampments. There's a lot of tents, even on the side of the highway. There's a lot of people pushing shopping carts around. There's a lot of visible homelessness happening in LA. And so that's just really unfortunate. And that's a sign of, problems with our economy and society as a whole in the United States. And so that was really kind of troubling to see. And sometimes you do pass a homeless person, like when you're walking on the street. When we were in Hollywood, even here in Anaheim last night, you'll walk by people that are obviously homeless and have severe mental health issues. I know for the kids, sometimes that can be a little bit scary, because they're talking to themselves or they're shouting out things or stuff like that. So that's a little bit troubling. And around some of those tents that you would see in Los Angeles, you'll see a lot of crap, garbage, things that are just like spilling out and all around because they don't have garbage service. What are they supposed to do with it? And just, it's kind of messy. So that's something that's kind of sad. And then here in Anaheim, even when we were leaving Disneyland last night, I saw a homeless person literally laying asleep on the sidewalk, right with all the tourists walking by them, sound asleep, bundled up as best they could on the ground. And I've seen this before. I've seen this kind of thing back in San Francisco. It was really bad, even back in the early 90s. you know, there's every community, whether you think there is or not, there's homeless people. There's people that don't have homes and don't have anywhere to go. Yeah, even at home. You know, that's all going to depend on the economics of your community and how much your community is doing to provide for the homeless and give them, you know, shelter or a way to get back on their feet. Or, you know, some people choose to be homeless and that's just the lifestyle that they've decided on. But there's other people who, you know, one thing went wrong in their life and then everything fell apart and now they're homeless and then they get stuck that way and they get trapped and can't figure out a way out of it. So it's a reality that you need to be aware of as a traveler. And it's not just a problem in America, but it's especially bad in the United States and especially visible in big cities. So that's something to be aware of. So I hope you appreciated this video. Please give me a thumbs up down below if you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. I always answer everybody's questions in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.